Hey SmartPak fans, I'm SmartPaker Dan. She's Dr. Lydia Gray, SmartPak staff veterinarian and medical director, and we are here to answer horse health questions asked and voted on by you. Now, for those of you who watch the Ask the Vet video series regularly, you know if your question gets voted into one of these episodes, you win a SmartPak gift card. Turns out we've had a little bit of an issue. Some people have not been receiving their gift cards. So we do email you, but our producer's been the one emailing you. So it might have gone to your junk folder, spam folder. So unfortunately, if that is you, please email us at CustomerCare@SmartPak.com so you can redeem your gift card. We don't want anybody to miss out on that.
No. Good. We got lots of good stuff.
Yes, absolutely. So definitely reach out. We'll definitely hook you up with your gift card. So on to the questions who are going to win their gift card this month. So this
and then check their spam folder.
And check your spam folder. So this is question number 1 was submitted by Haley on the SmartPak form at smartpak.com/askthevetquestions. And Haley wants to know, boots during turnout. I see lots of people turning horses out with brush boots and splint boots. Does this help or hurt the horse in any way? I've heard some people say it will make the horse's legs weaker because they rely on the boots for support. Is there any truth to this? Is there any circumstance where boots would be beneficial during turnout?
Go ahead.
Oh,
she's not done yet?
No, she's done. That's it. But we had some feedback from the YouTube community comments. So Neam Harity, and if I butcher your name, I'm very sorry. She also said, are boots beneficial for horses to wear during turnout? Because I really want a horse of my own, so I'm learning everything I can. So she's doing her research ahead of time.
Yeah. That's it. Now it's my turn. Okay. What I was going to say was, I've noticed a trend that these questions, like one question on a topic has like 3, 4, 5 questions, and I can't remember them all. So
she wanted to make sure she's going to submit her question. She was going to get all the points covered.
My goodness. Okay. And she said brush boots or splint boots. I think
correct.
Brush or splint boots, like the same. That name can be applied to the same kind of boot. We have an example. Like these would be brush or splint boots. They're pretty simple. They have a strike guard on the inside, and the point of these is that it's to protect against impact injury. So horses that might be knocking one leg against the other, you want to protect the cannon bone, the splint bone, the soft tissues, the tendons and ligaments that run down the back of the leg, the ankles, that tissue from like the knee to the ankle.
Yes.
Because that's where some horses interfere. Bell boots would be if horses like overreach, so their hind foot comes up and hits the heel of the front foot. So you want to prevent those. I know a lot of horses, they wear those like all the time.
Yeah.
And then the final would be overuse injuries. And I'm going to give this to you because it's Velcro, and my hair and Velcro don't really mix. But this has a sling on the bottom. So it's not just like the brush boot with the 3 straps up here. It's got this additional part, and that goes underneath the ankle and protects against overuse, the tendons and ligaments on the back of the leg from sinking down too far, and from the ankle from hyper extending. So a little bit different use there. And so you have to know why you're putting boots on your horse. You don't just put them on because everybody else at your barn is doing it, or it's tradition or something. You need to know why you're doing it.
So if you have a horse who maybe has had some tendon or ligament issues prior, it might be a good idea. If your horse interferes. Like I have a horse who's so, shall we say, wide that he doesn't interfere, so I've never put boots on him. But now I have a young horse who is, as he grows, he's narrow, he hasn't developed any musculature yet, and so he interferes and overreaches both. So he's a brush boot and a bell boot guy. I'm big into bell boots because a lot of horses, I ride stock horses, and egg bars with naviculars.
Oh yeah, and you don't want to be.
It's very easy for them to throw their shoes and turn out. So I'm big into the bell boots for sure.
So the things I wanted to say were, it's important that they fit well and stay on, that you apply them correctly, because boots can do harm if they're not applied correctly. If they're left on too long, if they're dirty, you know, bell boots that just get left on in turnout, especially where it's sandy or dusty or whatever, can cause sores. So you have to be careful there. Along those lines, your boots need to be easy to clean. These are super easy to clean. I mean, you just hose them off. They need to be durable. So all these Velcro pieces that we've been showing you, they need to hold up for use, daily use, again. They need to not hold water, and here's an important thing, not trap heat. And that's why I like these Professional Choice, these new splint or brush boots, they're made of a new kind of fabric that it is good airflow and doesn't hold the heat in like our old-fashioned neoprene did, because there's been some research that says...
Velcro for you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm not touching that. There's some evidence that says if you put a boot on a horse and it's this neoprene that traps or holds the heat in, once they start working, the soft tissue can get overheated, and that's damaging to cells. So you want a good, breathable, good airflow boot, especially if you're going to leave it on for a long time.
Because this is lightweight and it's also like
it's very lightweight,
inside.
but like it's got a good strike guard. I mean, I can feel there's good protection here on the inside. So, and then the other thing I was going to say is read reviews when you go online, because we've all got different sized horses and long legs and short legs and fat legs and skinny legs, and if you read the reviews, it'll tell you about the sizing, like is it true to size, or should you order a size larger or smaller than you normally would. It'll tell you about, is it hard to clean, easy to clean, maybe some cleaning tips. But I find the reviews that people write about products to be very, very helpful when I select.
And to your point about like the sizing, because if they're too loose, you can get dirt in the inside of them.
They can
and
slip
down
and scare horses.
Exactly. So luckily we do have at SmartPak free return shipping on sized items. So sometimes
that is right. I forgot.
So sometimes what I recommend is order both sizes, see which one fits best, and then just send the other one back to us, and that way you don't have to wait about all this exchanging back and forth.
Thank you, that's good.
You're welcome. My contribution to this one episode. Well, on to question number 2. So this is submitted by Megan on the SmartPak form. This is actually Megan's 7th question to be answered.
Holy cow.
Megan has some good ones. So the other questions that you've answered for her are diatomaceous earth, disinfecting barn items, toxic plants, salt, fencing, multivitamin versus multi-purpose supplements.
Wow.
She's got lots of great ones. And now, her new one, is it safe to feed coconut oil? What are the benefits? So I know coconut oil we've seen a lot in like the human world now. People have been using it.
Quite trendy, yeah.
Yeah.
We have some examples. We have the cocoa soya. That's been around a long time, so it's coconut and soy.
Let's do a little rearrange of our props here.
Great name there. So coconut oil is one of the rare plant sources of saturated fat.
Oh.
You maybe have heard of saturated fat because that's what's in red meat and whole fat dairy, butter, that kind of thing. But the saturated fat in coconut oil is unique in that it's made up of, I have to back up a little bit. There's short chain, medium chain, and long chain fatty acids.
Okay.
And the saturated fat in coconut oil is made up of the medium chain fatty acids.
Okay.
And you're like, who cares? Why that's interesting and useful is because the medium chain fatty acids, or we might call them medium chain triglycerides, they are broken down and used differently than the long chain fatty acids.
Okay.
In that the long chain ones, there's a kind of an extensive process of digesting and absorbing them, and the body tends to store them as fat. Some of us know that better than others. The medium chains get broken down quite easily and immediately used for fuel.
Okay.
So athletes would like these. We find they're useful in horses that have, say, a PSSM horse that can't have as much sugars, can't have the usual sugars and starches, but they need fuel to work.
So they wouldn't be getting as much grain.
Right.
Yep.
So you could replace that grain with medium chain triglycerides such as found in coconut oil and give them a ready sense of fuel. It's right there, it's readily available. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So there is a benefit.
There is, and it's a little bit technical, and it might not be exactly what people are thinking of, but I mean, scientifically, that's why they're attractive to nutritionists or veterinarians, say.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's an easy one. Let us know how that goes with your horse.
Just a couple more things about coconut oil.
Good, okay.
Well, I just want to add that some oils are very, they have a strong odor. They break down quickly. And the nice thing about coconut oil is it doesn't really have a smell or taste, and it's kind of resistant to rancidity, that breakdown of oil that it smells when it smells bad. That's an oil turning rancid.
So it can hold up in the barn fairly well.
It can hold up in the barn very well. Thank you for putting it into good speak. But yeah, so I think your horse is very palatable. It's very tasty. Your horse will like it, and it'll hold up in the barn.
Perfect. Well, Megan, we can't wait to hear your next question next time.
Oh my gosh.
So on to question number 3. This was submitted by A Close Horse OK on Twitter. Hopefully I got that right. And they would like to know, at what age is it okay to start a young horse on a joint supplement? My 3-year-old quarter horse is just starting her riding training and is wondering if she should be on a joint supplement. And we got lots of community comments on this, all saying they didn't want to start the horse too soon. And I am very excited to hear what you're going to say about this.
Are you going to read those comments? Or
No, I
just,
don't have
you
it.
just
Summarize the general consensus of the group.
That they're worried about starting their horse too soon.
Yes.
Do you know what the concern is? Because I don't.
I was on a SmartPak's customer care team for many years, so it is a question that comes up a lot from customers. I think part of the concern is wanting to start when they start to see a problem,
waiting until there's a problem versus being proactive and setting their horse up for success. All right. Well, we think here about supplements are generally appropriate for adult horses, and the NRC says horses are adults once they're 24 months. So that horse is 3, so I'm going to go with do it. But I think that the starting riding training is sort of the key here, because I also have a 3-year-old. He'll be 3 in June, and I have not started him on a joint supplement, mostly because he is not doing anything. I'm doing most of the work around him. I'm grooming and that. When he does start his riding training, probably at 4, then I will add a joint supplement to him. And interesting story, I don't know if I've even told you this, but back years and years ago when I got Newman, I got him at 4, and right away we started him in riding training because he was ready. And I had a friend at a Nutramax, and she mailed me a tub of Cosequin as a sort of a horse warming gift, and said, this is for your new young horse as you start riding training. So I've never forgotten that, and I think that's awesome. So I like to when people get new young horses, give them a bucket.
That's a great idea.
Joint supplement, yeah. So if you're looking for a gift idea, there you go. But I wouldn't worry about starting a horse too soon, because what you're trying to do is provide the building blocks of healthy joint tissue, joint fluid, cartilage, and you do that with low levels of glucosamine, chondroitin sulfate, HA. Also, you'll see some vitamin C and manganese in there. We call those cofactors to help build the tissue. So it's nice to have those on board. And then when your horse begins to work more than just standing and blinking and breathing and eating and pooping, then they use those building blocks as they build new tissue, as they repair from just daily use.
Well, because I think an interesting fact about cartilage that I know you've told me about many times, but that's aneural. So basically, your cartilage has no feeling. So once it starts to deteriorate and you start to see the stiffness and then the pain, you've kind
down
of
to the bone.
Yeah. So you've already kind of can't go back, basically. So you're kind of setting yourself up for success here.
That's a very good point, yeah. So you don't wait until the horse is showing you signs that, we have a problem. I mean, that's when you bring your veterinarian in, and it's time for pharmaceuticals and maybe injections and things. But we like to start horses proactively on joint supplements. And I really like that phrase, set them up for success. Why wait?
So go for it. So moving on to question number 4. This was submitted by Nicole on the SmartPak blog at blog.smartpak.com. And Nicole would like to know, we are looking for footing options for our horse's paddock. They're only in the paddock during nighttime. What are some of your suggestions for affordable paddock footing?
I saw this.
I know.
And I thought, it's a great question. I thought this will be super easy and straightforward. No.
Oh, see, I saw it and thought complete opposite.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, because my barn owner does a great job. There is no mud. Well, here's my list of things. So safe.
Yep.
Healthy. So not something that they can't eat off of. Affordable. They specifically asked for that. Easy to clean. You want to be able to go in there and pick the manure.
Yep.
Drains well when it's wet, so during the monsoon season, and then not dusty when it's hot and dry. That's also bad, especially for the horses that can't breathe very well. You want it to be comfortable to stand on, and also to lay down on if they don't have some place to lay. And then it has to be all season. It's got to be an all season paddock. So spring, summer, winter, fall. But it's got to hold up when it's muddy season. It's got to hold up when it's frozen. So it can't be slick. I mean, when you think about it, your footing has a lot of jobs to do.
Well, that's what I was wondering, was like, what region of the country? Is she in Seattle and it's raining all the time? Is
Well,
it snowing? Is it Minnesota? Is it?
That's why it got hard, because not only is the climate different in the different parts of the country, but what you have as possible footing choices differs from where you live. Because like I was in Georgia once, and they have this thing called red clay. We don't have that in Illinois. And so the people in Georgia know how to deal with that. And so my advice is, don't listen to me. Go visit barns, see what you like, talk to the barn owners, and they'll tell you, this is the best thing I ever did for my property. It's saved me time, it's been great on the horses. Or they'll say, oh, don't do this, I made the biggest mistake in my life. But so go visit a lot of barns, talk to veterinarians, talk to farriers, all kinds of people in the business, and see what's good and bad. Get yourself a list going. And then, I say this every time, talk to your county extension agent, right? Because they know what the soil is in your area. They know about runoff and like what areas that are flat or low or high or inclines in that. And then also they'll know, or you could just go to the quarries in your place and find out, I learned this word, the aggregates that are available in your area. Now we use limestone screenings or fines, but I don't know if they're available in all parts of the country. So.
Well, that's what I was going to say. There's so many variables. Not only that, but even like location of the paddock on their property. Is it at the bottom of a hill, so it's going to get a lot of like rain?
And where is the water source in it, and where is the shelter in it? All those things matter. And what is the fencing? The other thing is, she says affordable, and I wasn't going to mention this, but I will, just so that all the options are out there. There's some really cool new, let's call it technology, and it's sort of, I don't even know what let's call it composite, because I don't know what it's made out of. But you dig out the ground a little bit, and you lay this grid down. Have you seen them? There's a couple different brands out there. Ram Fence makes one, and it makes sense because they're in the fence business. They get the whole how to contain horses, and then you fill it with it could be pea gravel, whatever you have in your area, and it keeps the ground flat and level, and it prevents mud from building up.
Oh.
So, but it's not cheap. However,
but like affordable horse in the horse world, maybe.
Correct. And you got to think long term. So rather than have to like dig out and replace your paddocks every year, which could get expensive, what if you do it right the first time and it lasts forever and ever? So. Well,
I think that's something we always talk about here is like, do you make the investment right up front, or do you spend all the money like, because you took a.
Yeah, and that's a personal decision. But I just wanted to throw that out there, that there's that option too.
Let us know what you decide to go with, and I would love to know more about
pictures.
Pictures,
like pictures,
yes. When it's all done, help the rest of us out.
Yeah.
Well, on to question number 5. This was submitted by Haley again, who is our, I think, question number 1. So Haley is on fire to this month. And she submitted this on the SmartPak form. So she would like to know PSSM types 1 and 2, which we've already kind of talked about here. What's the difference? How to manage in terms of diet, exercise, and feeding? Any supplements that help? Which is worse in terms of maintenance and quality of life for the horse? Haley's going to get all her questions.
Yeah, so I'm going to hold you to making sure that I answer.
I will check. I'll make sure we check them off. Okay.
But,
so PSSM types 1 and 2. What is the difference?
Go. All right. Well, I think we should maybe explain what PSSM is.
Yes.
So the letters stand for polysaccharide storage. So that's PSS. Myopathy M. And now that I've introduced those big words, we got to tell you what the words mean. So polysaccharide is just a big fancy scientific word for an abnormal glycogen. Glycogen being the storage form of blood sugar or glucose. Okay.
Got you.
Storage, so it's an abnormal way of storing abnormal sugar. And then myopathy is just a Latin word for a muscle pathology or a muscle disease.
Okay.
So when you store glycogen wrong in the muscles, then you have a muscle disease.
So these horses don't store sugar correctly and therefore have a muscle disorder.
Right.
Okay.
And the muscle disorder is here we go again, a rhabdomyolysis. And that just means the dissolution or the breakdown of skeletal muscle, so the muscle you use to move your skeleton, through exercise or associated with exercise. So that's basically tying up.
Okay.
Right. And there's a couple forms of tying up. There's a sporadic, which happens because it was extra hot that day, or you had entered your horse in a 50-mile endurance ride and you hadn't been training for it, and so he tied up, he cramped. That's sporadic. The other chunk is chronic. PSSM fits under chronic, meaning it's just the horse keeps having it on and on. It's not a one-time thing. So PSSM Type 1, they have further broken this down. There's a lot we don't know about it, but there's a lot we do know.
Okay.
So I can just share with you both of those things, the parts that are like fuzzy and the parts that are pretty well hammered out. And by the way, Dr. Stephanie Valberg, she's now at Michigan State University. She is the world's expert at any sort of muscle condition, but especially PSSM. And so you can go to MSU's website and read all about it, because we're not going to be able to cover everything here that she wanted to do. So I'm just giving you the framework, and then you go fill it in yourself. But she found these horses that tie up, and then the vets did a muscle biopsy. They took a chunk of muscle out, and then Dr. Valberg, looked at it with special staining under the microscope and found this abnormal glycogen, abnormal amounts and abnormal look to it. And they studied it, and they studied it, and they studied it. And in 2008, they found the genetic marker for it. So it is now a disease because it has a cause.
Wow.
They found that there's an enzyme that makes this wrong glycogen. It's called glycogen synthase, and it's abbreviated GYS1.
Okay.
So now we used to have to send in muscle biopsies to diagnose it. Once we thought maybe this horse has PSSM, because in a quarter horse they tie up. So that's stiffness, pain, sweating. They get really hard muscles over the loin, the hindquarters, the back end, and they have to stop working because their legs just won't work anymore. They take these very short, stiff steps. But now we can send in just blood or hair,
Which is so less invasive.
and test. There's a genetic test. So then we had these warm bloods, and some other breeds that they weren't tying up, but they had this unable to localize weird gait abnormality. The vets were looking at them, and sometimes it was a shifting lameness, and it was hard to describe. And they would look at the joints, like the hocks and the stifles, and they would look at the muscles. There was nothing wrong with anything of the usual, like tendons and ligaments. Everything was good. And then they did muscle biopsies, and some had abnormal glycogen and some didn't. And so they said, well, we think we have a new group here. And so she called them that which is not type 1, which another name for would be
PSSM 2?
type 2. So that's the warm bloods. 90% of warm bloods have type 2.
Interesting, okay.
Arabs,
So breed specific.
it's very breed specific. Arabs that have PSSM, none of them will have type 1.
Oh.
They all have type 2.
Even Arabs, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
100% of Arabs will have just type 2. They do not get type 1.
Wow.
Yeah, 90% of warm bloods will have type 2.
Wow.
Not very many of them get type 1.
Are
Quarter
there certain
horses,
breeds who get type 1?
quarter horses, Belgians, Percherons, really high prevalence in those two
Okay.
breeds. Yeah, it's you're getting it now. It's complicated.
Yeah.
It's very complicated. The really interesting thing that she was able to find was in quarter horses, whether they have type 1 or type 2, their clinical signs are tying up. So that muscle pain and stiffness and sweating and the firm, rock-hard muscles in the cramping. Warm bloods, when they get it, they just don't perform well. They underperform. They're termed lazy. You kick them and they don't go. They're unhappy in their work. They don't, if they're a dressage horse, they don't collect. They don't engage. They have trouble with flying changes. They have trouble with canters and picking up the canter and making lead changes. So it's very, very different. Now, her question was, which one is worse? Kind of the type 2, and here's why. When Dr. Valberg did her, well, how do you fix this problem, PSSM? She said there is a specific diet and a specific exercise program, and the vast majority of quarter horses with PSSM1 improved,
Okay.
like cured, although we wouldn't use that word because you still have to manage it, because if you don't manage it, they go right back.
So through diet and exercise, you saw an improvement in the symptoms.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's type 1. Type 2 is not so black and white. Most of the horses improve with diet and exercise, but not all of them. And the ones that do improve, not as well. The other problem with PSSM2 is it's not a disease, one single cause that you can test for genetically. She thinks there are a wide variety of reasons that horses have that which is not type 1.
Well, I was going to say, because it sounds like for type 2, we're just ruling out that's not type 1. So it could still be a variety of other things that are causing it?
It's still a muscle problem, and it's still a glycogen. Now it's a glycogen clumping,
Okay.
as opposed to abnormal glycogen or too much glycogen being stored. They clump weird. So they don't quite have it all ruled out. So that's what I meant by there's a lot we don't know.
Gotcha, okay.
Yeah. So I would recommend to go and read on Michigan State University about PSSM.
She did ask about something you touched on a little bit.
Diet and exercise.
You-
Yeah. So the main recommendations for diet are remove the sugars and starches, because if it's a glycogen or glucose storage disease, if you don't have glucose to store, you get better. So take away the sugars and starches, and then if they need fuel or calories or energy for their work or just their weight, you add back in fat.
So when you say sugars, that's going to be like the haze and grain.
Grain.
Yep.
I'm talking about the simple sugars.
Okay.
So fiber, horses need fiber.
Yep.
You keep the hay, but you want a low NSC or low non-structural carbohydrate hay, and that would be about 12% is what everybody has recommended. And if you analyze your hay and it's say 15 or 16, then you can soak it and remove or leach out the remaining sugars that your horse should not have. Pasture is probably off limits, so either you don't turn them out or you turn them out with a muzzle just to slow them down a little bit. But you don't feed them grain, you might feed them a ration balancer to prevent them getting more sugars and starches than they need.
And then if needed, add in a fat like the cocoa soya we talked about earlier.
Yep. And so that's diet. And then exercises, these horses need as much turnout as possible. I read somewhere, probably from Dr. Fehlberg, that they should not be in a stall any longer than 12 hours. And I have a horse with that, and so I've realized that when he is stalled more than 12 hours like at the show, he can't do his job the next day.
So they need to be out, moving around.
They need to be, so
stretching
turn out
those
all the time,
muscles.
but they need controlled exercise also. And she's been very specific with the type 2 horses that a long, slow warm-up with long and low frame. Do you know what I mean by that?
So they're a little more rounded.
Yeah, don't put them into a collected short frame right away. And when they are warmed up and you are in the work phase of your program, give them frequent breaks. So don't ask these PSSM2 horses to stay up and collected and together for your whole ride, because they just can't do it. They need a break to release that muscle tension.
Those are some great tips right there.
Yeah.
For a complicated subject, you handled it very well.
It's really hard, you guys.
And you said turnout. Haley's first question was about the turnout boots and splint boots. So
Oh, it all
they're going to
makes
go
sense now.
hand in hand there for you.
Yeah, turn your guy out.
Yes. Well, perfect. Well, that was it for the questions for this month. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to submit those. So keep asking those so we have questions for our next episode, which will be in April. You can ask those questions on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, the SmartPak blog, and our forum at smartpak.com/askthevetquestions. Just make sure you use hashtag AskTheVetVideo. If your question was answered in this one or in a previous one, please reach out to our customer care team at customercare@smartpak.com so you can redeem your SmartPak gift card.
Check your spam
And check your spam folder, yes, apparently. But until next time, guys, make sure to subscribe and have a great ride.